have Article 90 here, and I'm going to read Article 91 to, for the sake of our viewers. But let me bring in Professor Kofi Abotsi. I'm grateful for your time this evening. I just want you to help us clear the confusion here, since the Constitution seems to be silent on whether the clerk to Parliament can be stopped from transmitting a bill that has been passed into law to the President for assent or not. Article 106 has been in contention here. Can you please help us understand what really is the letter and spirit of Article 106?
Well, first of all, to understand that, one needs to understand things broadly speaking. So broadly speaking, no one can direct Parliament on how it does its job. If you narrow that, it is only the courts who can direct Parliament in terms of its external compliance with the law. However, in the relationship between the organs of government, the principles or the theory that applies is what lawyers normally call the principles of separation of powers. Separation of powers implies that different organs are autonomous in their various spheres of influences and therefore their various provinces, but in their interaction, they are kept together by a concept called checks and balances where they check each other. So if you apply that in this context, the question is whether the executive can direct Parliament. And the answer obviously would be no. The executive cannot direct Parliament in the conduct of its legislative business. However, the checks and balances implies that sometimes cooperation happens between the various organs. Perhaps it is in that context at best that one can say that the executive may want to, as it were, nudge Parliament in a particular direction and hopes that Parliament takes the bait. And if Parliament doesn't take the bait, then the executive can assert itself. It is a constitutional truism and a political truism that where the cooperation between the organs of government fails, each asserts its own authority, and in the process, there's a collapse of the machinery of government. The expectation of Article 106 is that when Parliament passes a bill, the executive may assent to the bill or may refuse to assent to the bill with an explanation of the reason for the refusal. And then in the back and forth between them, ultimately Parliament reigns. In other words, where Parliament sends a bill to the executive and the executive refuses to assent to it, and there's a back and forth between them, under the Constitution, where Parliament refuses to change anything in the bill for the third time, Parliament can pass the bill without the executive. Now, if you look at that from that angle alone, it tells you that the executive's participation in lawmaking is rather administrative. Some may even say perfunctory. Perfunctory or administrative in the sense that it is not that substantive. It can't defeat the legislative authority of Parliament. What it can do is to signify to Parliament that as the implementers of the law, if we have concerns, those concerns should be looked at. However, it doesn't defeat it. And so if Parliament, upon the third consideration, still decides that the executive's position is untenable, Parliament can proceed to pass the law without the participation of the executive. But it is a collaborative process, and the expectation is that they will not overrule each other and that they will collaborate or cooperate. And so at best, it is an administrative one. The passage itself begins and ends with Parliament, but then the assenting, which is the administrative component of it, is left to the President so that there is an executive participation in the process. So if you're asking for the broad statement of the principles, that's the intendment of Article 106.